All right, what's up? Hello, Ice family. Good to see everybody this morning. It is Thursday. Great to be here with you. I am Dr. Jeff Moore, currently serving as the CEO of ICE. I'm also lead faculty in the cervical and lumbar spine divisions. Great to be here with you on a Leadership Thursday, and of course, and always more importantly, on a Gut Check Thursday. So it is Gut Check Thursday. We have posted the workout for this week on the ICE social media pages. It is a little bit different this week. So we've got barbell cardio on tap. So essentially, you're going to have 8 minutes to build to a heavy 1 rep max power clean. Following your build up, want you to rest for 4 minutes. Give yourself a nice breather. Then you're going to do 20 repetitions for time at 80% of that 1 rep max. So some fun barbell cardio, mixing it up a little bit, getting off the assault bike, getting away from the burpees, and swinging that barbell around. So have a good time out there with that. Post your scores. Always tag Ice Physio, hashtag Ice Train. Fun to watch you all suffer a bit every week alongside of us. As far as courses coming up, before we jump into our topic of why be about it, some courses coming up. Cervical spine is everywhere this weekend. So if you want to jump into cervical spine, I will be in St. Paul, Minnesota with our friends at Motion Physical Therapy. I believe Zach Morgan's going to be in Pittsburgh doing cervical spine at Evoke with Kristen Carlin and her group. And then I believe that Jordan Berry is going to be in Milwaukee. So if you want to catch cervical spine, it is everywhere this weekend. Modern Management of the Older Adult is throwing down in Charlotte. So lots going on, live courses this weekend. As far as online stuff, June 7th is going to be a big start date. We've got primary care launching. We've got persistent pain launching. We've got CMFA Essential Foundations launching. So June 7th, if you want to hop into some of our 8-week online cohorts, those are going to be ready to rock and roll here in a couple of weeks. All right, team. Why be about it, the sequel? So first things first, I want to point you back to Justin Dunaway's exceptional episode on February 23rd. So Justin Dunaway did an awesome episode called Why Be About It on February 23rd. And what he really unpacked was the importance of meeting the physical activity guidelines and making fitness a part of your life so that when you're pitching it to patients, you have that belief in its value. And he gave this wonderful dive into that Chin article looking at the placebo effect with the creams, the topical analgesia, when the physician either believed the cream was or wasn't real, and how that affected, even though they weren't aware of it, the outcomes with that patient. So you've got to go back and listen to that study because it really showed how whether or not the individual delivering the treatment really believed in the intervention, even though they didn't discuss that, right? The belief or lack of belief, how that affected the interaction and the outcome. So it's yet one more reason to embody physical activity is because when you do and when you truly believe in its value, that even the nonverbals, just the interactions, that belief you hold carries into your care in the ultimate outcome. So it's one more reason to be about it, right? The reason we've always talked about being about it, kind of on the fundamental level, is that we believe that people follow people, right? That behavior change, which is really what we're all after, is usually on the other side of modeling, right? That you demonstrate that behavior, that you inspire people to be better, and certainly more than trying to teach them, that leading, that holding the line, that being at the front. People will generally follow that example more than they'll follow whatever education or information you're trying to give them. So because people follow people, you leading from the front and modeling those behaviors is so critical to being effective in behavior change in those whose lives you're trying to alter and help them thrive. But I have another one. So Justin really got me thinking, right? Yes, people follow people was the genesis. This idea of embodying it so you believe in it, in the value of it, was such a great evidence-based support as another reason to be about it. I'd like to offer yet another. So as many of you know, I'm with physical therapy. I'm in different physical therapy clinics most weeks of the year, right? Whether it's teaching in them or consulting in them or doing one-on-one mentoring in them, I'm in different clinics with different physical therapists a large percentage of the year, and certainly engaging with physios all week, every week, in all of our different online and virtual formats. And there are so many things that impress me on the daily about the people in our profession. One thing that I'm often disappointed in is how much fear of movement we bring to the table as clinicians, as people who are clinicians, right? Now, this spans the whole spectrum, right? Whether it's from heavy deadlifts to kipping pull-ups, great episode Kelly Benfey last week on kipping pull-ups, to deep squats, to distance running. And it's often tied to pathoanatomy, right? Like, oh, I've got an old, labral tear or a shoulder issue or a knee thing, and so I don't do that stuff. I'm essentially afraid to get hurt while doing that stuff. Now, sometimes this is learned, right? Which is even more interesting. Sometimes I think people who become physios during the actual becoming a physio process, we learn to fear some of these movements, right? Maybe not squatting with your knees over your toes is one of the more classic examples, but during our educational process, we develop these fears. Other times, they're from personal experience, right? We got hurt doing a heavy deadlift, or we got a knee issue or a foot issue when we were doing distance running. But whatever it may be, the reality is, whenever we bring up what the fitness is going to be that day or the post-class workout at these ice courses, we're always surprised how many physios are afraid to participate in the activity. And it makes us wonder if we're bringing a lot of perceived vulnerability of our own regarding movement in our own bodies to the table. How does this affect patient care? If this is worth thinking about. So zoom out with me, right? And think back to your last patient with chronic back pain and a lot of fear avoidance who you were trying to implement a graded exposure program for. And we know that with low back issues especially, oftentimes what we're trying to restore or encourage the person to do is bend forward, right? A lot of folks either got hurt forward bending, right? They have a fear of lumbar flexion, and you're trying to convince them that it's okay to do this, right? Now, one of the items that determines your success in doing this is how much you honestly believe that it's safe. Right? This belief is what's going to enable you to be convincing that it's okay to bend forward, right? It's not going to hurt your back. Your spine is really resilient. Now, the question is, certainly the more of that belief you have, the more honest belief you have that this patient is not going to hurt their back if they allow themselves to bend forward, the more successful you're going to be in getting them to do so. No question there. The question is, where did this belief come from? Right? How are you standing there so confident with this person who's terrified to bend forward? How are you standing there with this really honest portrayal that they're going to be okay? I would argue it comes from two spaces, but one of them is more important than the other. The first one is you probably have some basic anatomy and understanding of the biomechanics and overall resilience of the spine, that it can take on the normal stress of forward bending, right? So you have an academic knowledge that the structures of the human spine can tolerate bending forward. That's helpful. But I would argue, and I think most of us would, that the personal experience you have is more powerful in this negotiation you're making with the patient that they're going to be okay to bend forward, right? You yourself have bent forward many, many times and not suffered any significant repercussions of your spinal health by doing so, right? Perhaps you even have a yoga practice, right? So you're doing standing forward folds on the regular, and this has never been an issue. It's likely more when you make those comments. Think about trying to sell those two things. If you sell your anatomical knowledge, telling that patient, look, the spine is really strong. It can handle X amount of strain before you're going to have an issue. There's no way you're going to put that kind of stress in your back just bending forward. The anatomical or didactic knowledge sell is going to be pretty weak. But the personal experience sell is going to be pretty strong when it comes to convincing this person. When you say, listen, Dale, I practice yoga every day, right? There's tons of standing forward folds. Not only do those not hurt my back, I regularly feel significantly better after performing my yoga practice. And I've been doing this for years. That is just a stronger sale. First person experience is stronger for both the beholder as well as the person on the receiving side of that sale. When somebody tells you, I do this all the time, and not only is it not injurious, I actually feel significantly better. That first person experience that you believe it's going to be okay because you've done it many times and you've not only have not had an issue, you've actually found it beneficial, is critical for you fostering confidence in the movement for this person to actually engage in it. Now the question is, we're all pretty comfortable with forward bending, I hope, but what if you had that same persuasive testimony for all movement or all activity? So regardless of what the patient's goals were, you could be there to authentically support them in that same way, with that same level of convincing personal testimony. Now, what's important is this has nothing to do with how well you're doing these activities, right? It doesn't matter how great of a lifter you are, how great of a runner you are. What matters is that you've played with these movements, you've engaged in these activities, and not only have they not hurt you, but you've deeply enjoyed them. So when that person says, I have a goal to do this triathlon, you're right there, as opposed to saying, well, that's a lot of volume of running. Like, what about your knees? Are your knees going to be okay? As opposed to saying that, you're saying, oh my gosh, I did a sprint triathlon a few years ago. I've never had more fun, right? The training for it, right? It was really diverse. We did it in a group. You're off you go, right? With this same convincing testimony that you convinced the graded exposure patient to restore their forward bending. Because you've done it and you loved it and you've got positive feelings about it. That is the opposite of, boy, I don't know, like that's quite a bit of running. How much have you done? Like I know a lot of people when they run that kind of distance, right? Especially you're going to be fatigued from the other activities, right? The odds of you getting this concern, this vulnerability, this lack of confidence, right? That you have not earned because you have not played with the movements is going to rub off on the patient. It's hard to be convincing when you don't believe that if you did it, you wouldn't get hurt. And so I think it's so interesting to think about not necessarily doing these things well, but to appreciate the fact that the clinician who has been there and done that in the widest variety of activities is going to be able to be there. They're going to be in a very different position, and by different, I mean better, to motivate their patients to do the same. Now, obviously, you can't do every single activity under the sun, but I would argue that the more you're out there challenging your body, the more you're appreciating your system's own resilience, the more you're exposing yourself to things that maybe you are a little bit worried about, but you do them in a progressively loaded fashion and find that you were fine. The more you continue to build your confidence that you can do a massive amount of things and your body doesn't fail you, the more you're going to be able to be there for the patient regardless of their goal in the way they want to expand their own movement library. Of course you can't do it all, but there probably is something to be said for the more of it that you can dabble in, the greater the resource you're going to be for those that you want to serve. If we want to help a wide array of patients to rip the vulnerability label off themselves, I'd argue we've got to tear our own off first. Give this some thought. I think about it every weekend when physios come up and say, hey, Jeff, I would love to stay for the workout, but, right, I've got this nagging shoulder thing, or, I haven't done that in a long time, or there's a lot of reasons I'm not comfortable doing this movement. And it's like, okay, that's fine, but how is this affecting the way that we bring movement to our population? Are we doing it in the same way that we're restoring flexion with graded exposure? Are we taking people and saying, that's awesome, you want to do that? Like, I've dabbled in that. Oh my gosh, was that fun? Like, no, I didn't get hurt. And boy, did I love it. And did it add something to my life? The fewer things we're afraid of from a movement perspective, the better we're going to be able to encourage our patients to meet our goals. We have to step up and challenge our own bodies first. to gain the confidence that creates the first person experience, that helps us to execute the sale, that expanding your movement library and becoming as dynamically resilient as possible allows you to lead your greatest life. I think that's another reason to be about it, because the fewer things you're afraid of, the greater resource you are. So get out there and try it all, right? That's my call to all of us. Whatever it is you're worried about, create a plan and attack it over the next year. So the following year in your patient care, when somebody wants to incorporate that in their lives, you don't find yourself subconsciously trying to pull that back. Give it some thought. Reason number 2 to be about it. Reason number infinity to be about it. Team, I hope that makes sense. Would love to hear your thoughts. Gonna throw a post on Instagram about that over the next couple of weeks. Hope everybody's awesome. ptonice.com as always for the courses. Great to see everybody this Thursday. Take care. Have a wonderful day in clinic.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.